as we move forward and see much better for those kids.
I call the Honourable Member Holly Walker.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to take this call on part 3. I had been planning to use this call to speak to my supplementary order paper and to offer it, in fact, in the spirit of cross-party cooperation and constructiveness as an additional protection for children from the sanctions imposed by this legislation. And given that we've just heard that this supplementary order paper has been ruled out of order because the government has chosen to exercise its financial veto, I'd like to speak a little bit to that and perhaps invite the Minister, if she's prepared to take a call, to outline the financial impacts of this supplementary order paper and the rationale behind the use of that veto. If I perhaps can just spend a minute or two outlining what it is that this supplementary order paper would have done. Because what it would do, Mr Speaker, and I was going to in fact thank and congratulate the Minister for her constructive engagement with my questions about the impact of sanctions in this bill on children during the debate in part 1 last night, because this relates to what's on the table now in part 3, acknowledging that beneficiaries will only be sanctioned by up to 50%. In an acknowledgement that their children need to be protected from the loss of income that a sanction imposed on them may incur. And the Minister was quite constructive with her comments about that last night, and agreed, I think, that the last thing that this legislation wants to do, or is designed to do, is have detrimental impacts, unintended consequences on the very children whom it is setting out to assist. And so this supplementary order paper, which has very strangely been ruled out of order, was going to give the Chief Executive the additional discretion not to impose a sanction or not to attempt to recover a debt if it was deemed that by the Chief Executive that to do so may deprive the child of food or shelter or would otherwise be detrimental to the well-being of the child. So what it would have done is add an additional layer of protection there, an additional discretion for work and income, not to impose the sanctions. It doesn't actually change anything materially about the bill. It doesn't change the sanctions themselves. It doesn't change the policy behind the bill or any of the other material provisions of the bill. It simply inserts a protection and a discretion on the part of work and income not to apply the sanctions that the bill allows if it can be shown that a child is put at severe risk, that their food or shelter or otherwise their general well-being would be put at such risk by the imposition of a sanction on their parents that it would give the Chief Executive the discretion not to apply that sanction. Now, what I think I can understand by the government's decision to rule this out based on the financial veto, and I see that the number of $128 million has been quoted here, and I would be very interested to hear how that figure was arrived at. But what I assume it means is that the government would be anticipating imposing that $128 million worth of sanctions under this bill, and is anticipating that that's the level of sanctioning it will be doing of parents. Now, that is very concerning if that is the case, because that's a significant amount of money, it's a significant amount of sanctions, and there are large numbers of children potentially affected by the sanctioning of their parents' income. So I'd like to invite the Minister to take a call, if she could, to explain perhaps the rationale behind that $128 million figure, and whether in fact we can take that in the House to be, if you like, a guarantee by the government that that is the level of sanctioning that they are expecting to apply, because that seems very significant to me. And I must say, Mr Chair, that while the Greens do take issue with many of the substantive provisions of this bill, this supplementary order paper was in fact simply seeking to add an additional level of protection in, and I would have thought it was something that all members of this House could support, or at least see the merit in, given that all it does is provide discretion, not even requiring the Chief Executive of Work and Income to exercise this discretion, but simply give them the option not to apply the sanction if it could be deemed not to be in the best interests of that child. Now, that seems to me, Mr Chair, very important both from the perspective of child wellbeing, but also to comply with our international obligations obligations under the International Convention on the Rights of the Child. And I'm referring here to Article 27, which talks about the rights of the affected citizen in need of social security to be able to support themselves and their children. And there is a risk, I think, that if we allow this bill to pass without this supplementary order paper, Mr Chair.
Are you
taking the call?
Well, only if you're not going to give her
If the Minister will
You're
take
taking the call?
I'm going to take
I call the Honourable Minister, Paula Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Chairman.